Yo, what's going on, guys? Chris Bonner here, Overtime Athletes. What I wanted to do was make a new series for you guys, and it's all about programming plyometrics or jump training. So I understand that a lot of you guys have questions depending on the sport that you're particularly playing. You know, a lot of times a lot of guys mindlessly just go out there and jump. I, for one, was one of them. Now, as I've gained experience and a lot of knowledge throughout the years, especially when it comes or pertains to plyometrics or jump training, there's a series of progressions that I make to lead up to it. So for the first video, what I wanted to make today was basically general phase. And this is for kind of anybody who wants to be able to start incorporating jump training. They may not have a specific need or specific sport, but they just want to get a little bit more explosive and increase that capacity. So what I'm going to do this video about and how to program as far as anybody who's trying to increase their explosiveness, talking about the first phase. When I say first phase, this would be like the first phase of your training block. If you're thinking about somebody who is performing powerlifting or any other sport, this would be essentially that beginning block of training and what that should look like. So right here I have next to phase one, which I call absorb or absorption of force. You guys often hear me talk about that. That's really focusing on the eccentric portion. Any dynamic movement has three phases to it: eccentric, isometric, which is a transition, and then concentric, which is usually associated with the production of force, okay? So what I have here is three different categories. Really what I like to focus on in the beginning that I've kind of come to. Now, don't get me wrong, there's many ways to skin a cat, and depending on the level of that athlete, I might advance it a little bit quicker. But even for myself, who I typically like to think I have a pretty I'm pretty explosive, or my jump is pretty high, I still start from, anytime I'm starting jump training, which I'm doing right now, I scale back and start from a base level, and I really start to focus on eccentric or absorbing and teaching my body to be able to absorb that energy to then go ahead and utilize it to produce. I start from a base level, and what I usually like to focus on in my first 2 days when it's for jump training for general, remember, is one day is going to be on unilateral. When I talk about unilateral, it's a lot of single leg jumps. Why? Because it teaches a lot. It's high neurological, one. Two, when you are able to teach single leg, obviously it's going to carry over to both, but also you are able to really start to formulate some stability in that single leg. Anything unilateral is going to require a lot of stability, and it forces that stability, especially if we can scale it back and make it low-level plyometrics. So when I perform unilateral motions, I'm going to perform them in a vertical plane where I'm coming straight up and down, right? Where I'm just directly fighting gravity straight up and down. Horizontal plane where I'm pushing out, where I'm pushing the ground away from me. And then in the lateral plane, pretty simple, just three phases I focus on. Then what I do on the next phase is, I can share that with you guys. If you guys are interested in this, drop a comment down below. But what I do is I simply advance those motions. Okay, so if I'm doing something at a low level here, I'm just gonna simply progress that to a more advanced movement. And then the second day I'm gonna do is what I like to deem a little bit more low level, where I'm focusing on connected. So this is gonna be a bilateral movement where I'm using both legs, but what I like to put is ankle, knee, hip, because one, I might start off with some pogo jumps, then I might start off with some kind of low squat jumps where I'm working across the knee, really on the quads, and then I'll get the hip involved in the suspension area where I might focus on a little bit more regular squat jumps. And I'm just doing this on a low level because I want to teach that athlete how to essentially absorb force and then be able to start to, on a low level, be able to recreate it. Finally, on the third one, what I have here is I have absorption of absorb, and that's really the eccentric focus. So I might actually, in that first phase, really start to focus on either a bilateral or unilateral movement where that athlete can focus on actually being able to generate as much energy. When I say generate as much energy, we utilize things such as depth jumps, right? Where they're stepping off a platform and teaching their body at that low hip angle how to essentially be able to act as a shock absorber, a hydraulic, so that they can essentially catch themselves generating. Remember, in a plyometric move or any kind of jump movement, the faster that you can essentially draw your body down, you're utilizing that stretch reflex, that stretch shortening cycle, generating energy within that muscle. If you don't utilize that energy, it essentially just dissipates as heat. But if you use it, you want to produce as much as you can so that it can then force you or propel you down the field, court, or whatever it is sport that you're playing. So like I said, this is just an overview. This might be for some of you coaches or some of you athletes that follow along with the channel. Let me know what sport you want me to go over. If you want me to go over phase 2 in more of a general standpoint, or if you want me to go get a little bit more technical on an actual sport. But this is my mindset when I start to program. I use a base phase based on evidence, and then what I do is I build it out upon that athlete. I know for myself, what you'll see when an athlete comes in, this is usually the common structure that you're gonna see with me when it comes to programming plyometrics and trying to increase that explosive capacity. I hope that helps. I'll catch y'all next time.